Did you know that 90% of your summer harvest is actually determined before a single flower even opens? Hello everyone and welcome back. Today we are talking about the absolute most critical moment in your garden's life cycle. We are talking about the pre-bloom window. I promise you, by the end of this video, you will possess a gardening secret that will literally double your yield and keep your plants virtually bulletproof. But here is the crazy part. Most people think you should leave plants alone before they flower. That is completely wrong. Doing nothing right now is the biggest mistake you can make. Are you one of those gardeners who waits until the first blossom to start fertilizing? Let me know in the comments right now. Be honest. Let us rewind a little bit and set the stage for what is actually happening in your garden right now. For centuries, farmers relied purely on the changing of the seasons, hoping for the best. But modern plant science has shown us a hidden battleground. As the soil warms up and days get longer, your plants wake up from their winter sleep. But they are not the only ones waking up. Hungry pests and dormant fungal spores are also stretching their legs, completely starving and looking for a host. The period just before the buds open is like the quiet before a massive storm. The plant's vascular system is pumping nutrients at maximum speed to create flowers. This makes the plant incredibly vulnerable, but also incredibly receptive to our help. So, let us dive into the very first critical step, which is understanding the exact timing of this pre-bloom phase. Imagine your plant as an Olympic weightlifter preparing for the biggest lift of their life. Right before they bloom, they are gripping the bar, needing maximum energy. If you wait until you actually see the fully opened flowers to start giving them nutrients, you are way too late. You have completely missed the starting gun. The roots have already exhausted their winter reserves trying to push out those delicate little buds. Think about an apple tree in your backyard. The sheer energy it takes to create thousands of tiny blossoms is absolutely massive. That is exactly why this specific time frame, just as the leaf buds are swelling but before the flower petals show their true color, is your golden hour. It is your absolute last chance to load up the plant with the raw materials it desperately needs to succeed. Now, let us completely shatter a massive gardening myth right here. There is a very common misconception that applying fertilizer right before blooming will somehow burn the incoming flowers or cause the buds to drop off. This is a huge misunderstanding of how plant biology works. While it is true that spraying harsh, full-strength liquid chemicals directly onto fragile, open flower petals is a terrible idea, feeding the soil and the roots right before they open is the ultimate secret to massive success. Think of it like eating a huge, nutritious meal before running a marathon, rather than trying to eat a steak while you are actually running. This early intervention guarantees that when the flowers finally do open, they are strong, vibrant, and fully capable of turning into massive, juicy fruits or absolutely stunning floral displays. Next, we must talk about the silent killer in your garden, the dreaded spider mite. You might be thinking your plants look perfectly healthy right now, but these microscopic villains are already plotting their attack. Spider mites are tiny arachnids, related to spiders, that pierce the plant cells and literally suck the life juice right out of them. A classic example is when you look at a rose bush and see leaves that look a little bit dusty or slightly yellowed. Many people think this is just a nutrient issue, but if you look closely under the leaf, you might see a tiny, fine webbing. That is the spider mite army setting up camp. They absolutely love the dry, warming air of early spring. If you do not eradicate them before the plant blooms, they will completely overrun the new growth and destroy your flowers. Understanding why spider mites target the pre-bloom phase is crucial for your success. As your plant pushes out fresh, tender new leaves and flower buds, it is creating the absolute softest, most delicious tissue possible. For a spider mite, this is like a 5-star all-you-can-eat buffet suddenly opening up. They multiply at a terrifying rate. One female can lay hundreds of eggs in a matter of days. If you wait until the blossoms open to spray for them, you face a huge problem. Spraying pest control on open flowers can easily harm the delicate reproductive parts of the plant, ruining your chances of getting any fruit at all. This is why hitting the mites hard right now, while the buds are tightly closed and protected, is the smartest move any gardener can possibly make. But bugs are not your only enemy right now. We need to talk about the invisible threat floating in the air, which is early spring fungal disease. During the winter, fungal spores like powdery mildew, black spot, and various blights lay completely dormant in the soil or in the fallen leaves around your plants. As soon as the spring rains hit and the temperatures start to rise, these spores are splashed up onto the lower branches of your plants. Imagine these spores as tiny, invisible seeds of destruction, just waiting for the perfect moist, warm day to sprout. If a fungus takes hold of a plant just as it is trying to bloom, the plant will panic. It will drop its flower buds in a desperate attempt to save its own life, leaving you with absolutely zero harvest. This brings us to the core strategy of our pre-bloom routine, the holy trinity of early spring plant care. To guarantee a phenomenal harvest, you must execute 3 things simultaneously. First, a targeted burst of specific nutrition. Second, a preemptive strike against insect pests like our enemy the spider mite. And third, a protective armor against those floating fungal spores. Many amateur gardeners try to do these things one at a time, spacing them out over weeks. But the pre-bloom window is incredibly short. Sometimes it only lasts for 10 to 14 days, depending on your local weather. You have to be prepared to act decisively and combine these protective measures to give your plants the ultimate head start before the blooming chaos begins. Let us break down the exact nutrition your plants are screaming for right now, starting with nitrogen. Nitrogen is the absolute engine of green, leafy growth. Think of it as the building block for the solar panels of your plant. Before a plant can support hundreds of flowers, it needs a robust canopy of leaves to absorb sunlight and create energy. If your plant is pale green or yellowing right before it blooms, it is starving for nitrogen. A great illustration of this is a sickly tomato plant. If you give it a quick boost of a nitrogen-rich fertilizer right as the first flower clusters are forming, you will see it turn a deep, vibrant emerald green within just 3 or 4 days. It is like giving your plant a massive shot of espresso to wake it up. However, nitrogen alone is not nearly enough. The absolute star of the show during the pre-bloom phase is phosphorus. Phosphorus is the key mineral responsible for strong root development and, more importantly, the creation of abundant, massive flower buds. Let us bust another myth right now. Many people think you just throw an all-purpose fertilizer at the plant and hope for the best. But a fertilizer too high in nitrogen and too low in phosphorus will give you a giant, beautiful green bush with absolutely no flowers at all. You need to look for a fertilizer where the middle number on the bag is the highest. This guarantees that the plant is taking all that fresh spring energy and directing it exactly where we want it to go, straight into producing glorious, heavy blossoms. The third piece of the nutritional puzzle is potassium. If nitrogen builds the solar panels and phosphorus builds the flowers, potassium builds the plant's immune system and cellular strength. It regulates the flow of water inside the plant, which is incredibly critical during the unpredictable weather of spring. Imagine a sudden late frost hitting your garden right as the buds are swelling. A plant with high potassium levels has thicker cell walls, acting like a natural antifreeze to protect those fragile buds from dying. Potassium also improves the overall quality, color, and eventual flavor of whatever fruit or vegetable you are growing. So, a balanced pre-bloom feed must include a healthy dose of this vital stress-reducing mineral to ensure your plants are tough as nails. Now, let us talk about how you actually deliver this food. You have 2 main paths, organic or synthetic. For the pre-bloom window, I highly recommend liquid organic options like a high-quality compost tea or liquid kelp extract. Why? Because solid, granular fertilizers can take weeks or even months to break down in the cold spring soil before the plant can actually use them. By the time a granular fertilizer kicks in, the pre-bloom window has already slammed shut. Liquid organic fertilizers, on the other hand, are readily available immediately. They seep right into the root zone and are instantly absorbed. Picture it like feeding a patient through an intravenous line versus making them eat a heavy, raw meal. The liquid nutrition gets straight to work exactly when the plant needs it most. Speaking of fast-acting nutrition, let me introduce you to a pro-level technique called foliar feeding. This is when you mix a very dilute liquid fertilizer and spray it directly onto the leaves and stems of the plant, rather than pouring it on the soil. Plants can actually absorb nutrients directly through tiny pores on their leaves called stomata. In early spring, when the soil might still be a little too cold for maximum root efficiency, foliar feeding is an absolute game changer. It bypasses the cold soil completely. If you spray a weak solution of liquid seaweed onto your swelling fruit tree buds in the early morning, they will absorb those vital trace minerals within hours, giving them a massive, instantaneous boost of energy right before they open. Now that the plant is fed, we must return to our pest defense strategy. How do you actually stop spider mites before they ruin everything? First, you have to become an incredibly observant detective. Get out into your garden every single day and inspect the undersides of the leaves. You are looking for tiny white specks that look like spilled salt or pepper, or that dreaded fine silk webbing. Do not wait for the leaves to turn brown and fall off. By that time, the war is already lost. If you take a piece of white paper, hold it under a leaf, and tap the leaf sharply, you might see tiny specks fall onto the paper and start crawling around. Those are your spider mites, and seeing them means it is time to take immediate, decisive action. To eliminate these mites safely before the bloom, we need to use an acaricide, which is a specific type of treatment designed for mites, not just regular insects. Many standard chemical insecticides actually do not kill spider mites at all. In fact, they kill the beneficial bugs that eat the spider mites, causing your mite problem to completely explode out of control. This is a very common and disastrous mistake. Instead, you need targeted treatments. Horticultural oils are fantastic for this pre-bloom period. When you spray a highly refined horticultural oil over the dormant buds and newly forming leaves, it completely coats the microscopic mites and their eggs, effectively smothering them without leaving behind highly toxic chemical residues that will persist for months. If you prefer to stay strictly organic and avoid traditional horticultural oils, neem oil is your absolute best friend right now. Neem oil is extracted from the seeds of the neem tree and acts as a fantastic, natural repellent and growth inhibitor for mites. Here is a brilliant trick for using it. Mix your neem oil with a few drops of mild liquid dish soap and warm water. The soap breaks the surface tension of the water, allowing the neem oil to spread evenly over every single tiny crevice of the developing leaf buds. If you spray this mixture thoroughly just a few days before the buds are scheduled to open, you create a bitter, horrible-tasting barrier that spider mites will absolutely refuse to eat, forcing them to pack up and leave your garden. With the mites handled, we move to the final shield, disease protection. Fungal diseases are incredibly stubborn. Once they enter the plant tissue, they are almost impossible to cure. Therefore, the secret is entirely based on prevention. Before the flowers open, you need to apply a protective fungicide barrier. Copper-based fungicides are an ancient and incredibly effective tool for this. When you spray liquid copper onto the stems and closed buds, it dries and leaves a microscopic metallic shield. When a floating fungal spore lands on that plant and tries to sprout in the morning dew, the copper ions immediately destroy the spore before it can penetrate the plant's skin. It is literally like putting a suit of armor on your garden. Timing and weather are absolutely critical when applying these protective sprays. You cannot just go out and spray chemicals or oils whenever you feel like it. You must choose a calm, completely windless morning. If it is windy, the spray will blow right past your plants and into your face, which is terrible. More importantly, you must check the forecast to ensure there is no rain expected for at least 24 to 48 hours after you spray. If it rains immediately, all your hard work and expensive treatments will wash straight into the dirt. Also, never spray in the middle of a hot, sunny day. The water droplets act like tiny magnifying glasses, and the harsh sun will physically burn the tender young buds you are trying so hard to protect. Now, let us talk about efficiency and saving time. Can you mix your liquid fertilizer, your neem oil, and your copper fungicide all into one single sprayer and do it all at once? The answer is a cautious maybe, but you have to be incredibly careful. This is called tank mixing. Some products react violently with each other. For example, mixing copper with certain soapy formulas can cause it to turn into a thick sludge that clogs your sprayer and damages the plant. Always read the labels. To be safe, do a jar test first. Mix a tiny amount of your ingredients in a glass jar. If it stays liquid and uniform, you are good to go. If it separates, clumps up, or gets hot, do not spray it on your precious plants. There is a massive, incredibly important environmental reason why we do all of this heavy spraying strictly before the bloom. We must protect our pollinators. Bees, butterflies, and other beneficial insects are the true heroes of any successful harvest. If you spray oils, soaps, or chemicals while the flowers are wide open, you run a very high risk of poisoning the bees that come to collect the nectar. This is an absolute tragedy and completely counterproductive to gardening. By doing our preventative spraying during this tight pre-bloom window, while the flowers are still tightly sealed shut inside their buds, we create a safe environment. By the time the flowers finally pop open, the sprays have dried and are no longer a threat to our fuzzy little flying friends. Beyond spraying and feeding, there is physical work to be done right now. The pre-bloom window is your last chance for spring cleaning. Fungal spores and overwintering mites love to hide in the dead leaves and messy debris sitting at the base of your plants. Take a rake and carefully clear away all the old mulch and dead material from last year. This simple act drastically reduces the population of enemies waiting to attack. Once the ground is perfectly clean, apply a thick, fresh layer of organic compost or clean mulch around the base of the plant. This fresh mulch acts like a physical barrier, trapping any remaining bad spores in the dirt so they cannot splash up onto the newly forming flowers when the heavy spring rains inevitably arrive. Finally, we cannot ignore the most basic element of all, which is water. Proper hydration during the pre-bloom phase is just as important as fertilizer. Pushing out hundreds of blossoms requires massive amounts of internal water pressure. If your soil is dry during this critical window, the plant will simply abort the flowers to save water for its roots. However, you must water deeply and directly at the soil level. Do not use overhead sprinklers right now. Spraying cold water all over the top of the plant every evening creates the exact wet, humid environment that fungal spores need to explode. Use a drip hose or water by hand at the base. Keep the soil consistently moist like a wrung-out sponge, and your plants will have the strength to produce the biggest bloom you have ever seen. So, here is the incredible plot twist we have uncovered today. The most vital part of a flower's life happens before you can even see the petals. By feeding the plant with targeted liquid nutrients, suffocating the spider mites with oils, and shielding the plant with copper before the buds open, you are basically hacking nature. You are giving your garden an unfair advantage. It is truly amazing how just a few hours of work right now, in this specific pre-bloom window, will result in baskets and baskets of extra fruit and the most spectacular flowers on your entire street. You are no longer just hoping for a good harvest, you are actively designing one. Thank you so much for watching and learning with me today. If this pre-bloom strategy blew your mind, please subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and share this video with a fellow gardener. Now, I have a question for you. Which pest has caused you the most heartbreak in the past? Mites, aphids, or something else? Drop your battle stories in the comments below, and I will see you in the next video.